Hello, and welcome to the Evolve and Elevate podcast. I am Jacob Fry, your show host and humble servant. I have an unwavering belief that no matter where you are, who you are, what you have, or what the story of your past may hold, you have the ability and inner strength to design and realize your best self tomorrow, if only you will put in the effort today. Welcome back, fellow seekers of elevation and creators of evolution. This is episode 6 of the Evolve and Elevate podcast. Our topics this week is the practice of servant leadership and the earning of leadership capital. By the end of this episode, you will hopefully understand them both and how they are interconnected. Servant leadership is a very simple philosophy of leadership, the premise being that the ultimate goal of the leader is to serve those they lead. It is putting the people before self and before the numbers. Servant leadership is something our world desperately needs more of. We need, that's need, not want. We need more individuals, more leaders to not only accept the true burden of leadership, but to do so in a people-serving form. When I say, quote, the burden of leadership, unquote, I'm referring to the responsibility of a leader to put themselves second to those they serve. The servant leader seeks to improve the work conditions, the lifestyle, and the overall life experience of those they lead. It is about connecting with the individuals, learning about and sympathizing about their struggles and hardships, and then doing what is within the leader's power to ease said struggles and strife. To do this successfully, the leader must genuinely care for their team. A true servant leader will not have any ulterior motives. There is no justification for a true servant leader to be anything other than 100% authentic in regard to their passion for the people. I'd like to share a brief example of what I consider servitude in my career. A few years ago, I was responsible for the centralized logistic management of a driver's logistics for a decentralized location. Simply put, the colleagues managed were a couple states away, and those colleagues did not have access to an on-site supervisor, and they often felt overlooked by leaders and forgotten in their daily routine. This concern surfaced during a conversation with one of the colleagues while the centralized location was celebrating an Employee Appreciation Day. There was some justifiable upset in the fact that as a remote terminal, the team was unable to partake in some of the festivities at the base terminal. Having heard the concern and having true desire to improve the work experience of the decentralized colleagues, I made an ad hoc decision to take a road trip to their terminal, which was just a short skip of about 5 hours in a car one way. It was a Saturday, and I made the trip on my own time, on my own dime, and in my own transportation, leaving out at 2 a.m. from my home. Having scheduled the logistics for that day, I was able to time my visit and meet each colleague in person, express my gratitude for all they were doing for the company, and spread some of the colleague appreciation agenda and some of the items with them that these guys deserved for all the hard work they put in for the company. These guys were literally dumbstruck when I did this. One gentleman even stated in his 2 decades with the company, no one had ever shown any interest nor went out of their way to thank him for his service. Needless to say, that particular group of gentlemen always went above and beyond for myself and the company moving forward. I had effectively, through a servant mindset, earned leadership capital with the team. So, what is leadership capital, you ask? That's a great question. Leadership capital is the capacity for a leader to influence and impact their followers. I say capacity because just like with any other resource, leadership capital can be overspent and will eventually hit a bottleneck. Leadership capital is composed of 3 important variables. These are 1. A leader's personal skills, such as emotional intelligence and strong communication skills. 2, the rapport or bond built with those the leader is attempting to impact. And 3, the leader's reputation and their face value to those being led. Let's briefly break down these variables. A leader's skill set is a tangible and easily moldable variable. If you seek to improve your skills, there are endless resources and avenues to improve in the realm of communication, leadership, emotional intelligence, and other leader-related skills. The second variable is your bond with the team. This is something that cannot be learned, but rather must be earned with actions. Words just won't cut it. It is putting your team before you and truly caring about them as individuals and not just cogs in the machine to achieve your metrics. It is getting up at 2 a.m. in the morning to drive 5 hours to say thank you without any expectations. The third variable is reputation. This is the story of the leader based on their past actions and results. For more on reputation, check out episode 4 of the podcast series. In the consideration of the concept of leadership capital and those three variables we just shared, we must consider the style of leadership utilized to earn said capital. I really hate to admit it, but a self-centered, authoritative dictator is able to generate capital in the same form as a people-oriented servant leader. For the sake of this discussion, I'll refer to the authoritative style as a boss and the servitude style as a leader. Imagine for a moment that you have a boss that is extremely intelligent and able to influence teams with a very strong set of skills. This boss has driven consistent results over the years and has a reputation for achieving the numbers no matter the cost. The boss rewards his team when they fall in line and don't cross that line, otherwise there will be consequences. He has built bonds with his teams through consistent results. Although the team is afraid to speak out, share ideas, and go out of their way to improve, the status quo is satisfactory. The leader also has a very strong skill set, but their relationship and reputation differ some. The leader has a reputation of generosity, being helpful, and always being one to have an open door and an open mind. The leader has built relationship bonds with the team through mentorship and elevation of the individuals. The leader hits the metrics consistently but does not accept the status quo. Supporting the individual, he levels them up, so the team, overall, levels up as well. The leader understands that growing others will ultimately help them grow. They plant seeds within their colleagues, they nurture them, and then they let them sprout and grow into awe-inspiring high performers. It reminds me of a quote, and I'm not sure who wrote this or who said this, but the CFO says to the CEO, quote, "What happens if we invest in developing our people and they leave?" Unquote. And the CEO responds, quote, "What happens if we don't and they stay?" Quote. Let the boss versus leader comparison stew for a minute. Do you know a boss? Do you know a leader? Where do they get their leadership capital from? Is it from their title or is it from respect? Is it from rewards or is it from consequences? Do they encourage or do they break down? Is it fear or is it compassion? Hopefully you have a good idea of servant leadership and leadership capital at this point. Let's shift gears and jump into a Who Did It Best segment, Servant Leadership with Mohandas Gandhi. Widely referred to simply as Gandhi or Mahatma, Mahatma meaning great-souled. Great-souled Gandhi was a significant public figure in several fights for rights in the Indian National Congress. He learned law in his youth at the Inner Temple in London. He spent the majority of his life practicing law in South Africa before returning to India at age 45. He spearheaded the Indian National Congress in the fight for reduction of poverty, women's rights, religious rights, and much more. Gandhi helped end the practice of caste segregation in regard to the ostracizing of those born in a lower class, known as untouchables. Gandhi is most famous for his pacifist nature and his fasting until starvation protests and efforts to separate India and Indian practices from the strict control of England authorities. He consistently put the needs of others before his own, and as a result, he impacted and changed the lives of many. Let's quickly summarize what we've discussed today. A servant leader does exactly that. They serve their team, putting the team before themselves. They aim to improve the lives of those they serve, and they are able to impact. Being a true servant leader is sacrifice. It is not taking a role for the title and a nice bump in pay. It is taking on the burden of putting the team before self at all times. A true servant leader will never be anything but 100% authentic with their followers. There are no ulterior motives. It is simply passion for the people. The servant leader is very much so the bodhisattva of the workplace. If you're not familiar with Buddhism, please Google bodhisattva for an introduction. Leadership capital is the capacity of a leader to influence and impact the team. Leadership capital is composed of three variables, and they are skill set, relationships, and reputation. Leadership capital is naturally awarded to the true servant leader. However, an authoritative boss is also able to gather the same capital through different avenues. Choose to lead, not boss. Choose love, not fear. It is your choice, and I have no doubt you will choose the high road. Grow a team and help them level up. This will return tenfold to the leader. It may not be easy, but it'll be worth it. One truly selfless individual can change the world. Be the Mahatma the world needs today. I hope you'll visit the podcast next week, in which we will reflect on the value of mentorship and the importance of sharing your experience with a mentee. I hope you have a productive and strong week. This is Jake, signing off. And remember, when things are looking down, you always have the choice to stay up.